same group to those who perpetrated the attack in Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sure Senator McCain must know what he's talking about. But when you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying,
define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define
Senator
it
McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at him? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact that they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. I'm not finished, fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you have, you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. Go ahead.
Do you think that what you call the alt-left is the same as neo-Nazis?
Those people, all of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week, and is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop? But they were there to protest, excuse me, you take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question, go ahead.
Should statues of Robert E. Lee stay up?
I would say that's up to a local town, community, or the federal government, depending on where it is located.
Trump's race meltdown. As he says, both sides of the Unite the Right clash had fine people, and violence also came from the alt-left, then attacks removing Jen Lee statues, asking, is George Washington next? Donald Trump launched an extraordinary and angry defense of his performance in the wake of the Charlottesville riots Tuesday in a freewheeling, finger-pointing confrontation with the press at Trump Tower. He lashed out at his critics following a botched response to the weekend's Charlottesville murder, insisting that a violent alt-left mob came to protests ready for war, but a dishonest news media is shielding them from blame. The president even defended elements of the far-right protest, claiming some were fine people protesting against the removal of Confederate symbols. You had some fine people. But you also had troublemakers, he said during a Q&A session in the lobby of Trump Tower, an event that was supposed to be a press event about infrastructure projects. You see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and the baseball bats, he said, describing what he said had happened in the Virginia college town. While the vehicular homicide of a liberal protester, allegedly by a neo-Nazi who is now charged with her murder, has grabbed the nation's attention, Trump insisted that you had a lot of bad people in the other group too. His aides had expected him to address infrastructure, and the press conference began with praise for his new plan to make it simpler to build, but quickly veered off course. He offered the comment as a defense of his Saturday statement, in which he ad-libbed that there had been bigotry and violence on many sides. Those words prompted a second statement on Monday that more forcefully denounced white supremacists. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? He asked reporters on Tuesday, answering questions with questions. Do they have any semblance of guilt? Let me ask you this, what about the fact that they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. And you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent, Trump said. and nobody wants to say that. But I'll say it right now. I think there's blame on both sides, he added as he attacked the political press. And I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. Trump's reference to the alt-left is a nod to so-called Antifa protesters, short for anti-fascist, a movement that has seen its own violent protests aimed at conservatives.